Hey everyone, it's Samia Khan here with your Fox 10 News Now update. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday afternoon. We have a lot of news. I know a lot of you guys at home are dying to get an update on the freeway shooter, the serial freeway shooter, and the latest in the investigation. We'll get to that in a minute, but first I want to take you live. Rick Perry is speaking, and we're hearing reports that he's about to suspend his campaign, drop out of the 2016 presidential race. So we're going to go live and listen in to what Rick Perry has to say.
And let me say something. I know a little bit of something about enacting conservative principles because we've done it in my home state. During my 14 years as governor, Texas created nearly 1/3 of all the jobs created in America. We passed balanced budgets, we cut taxes, we set aside billions of dollars for a rainy day. We elevated our high school graduation rates to the second highest in America. I want you to keep in mind, in 2003, Texas was 27th in the nation in high school graduation rates. This is a state that's pretty diverse. This is a state that in the year 2000, the population in our public schools became a majority minority. This is a diverse state, Kathy, ethnically, culturally, geographically, economically. We got a high number of young people who have English as a second language. It's not the easiest bunch of kids in America to educate. And we were 27th in the nation in 2003. Some people would say, you know, that's pretty good, actually being in the middle of that with 4+ million people in that state and that diverse a population. But we didn't think so. I didn't think so. And we started putting policies into place. We put policies into place that really made a difference. We had the largest teacher incentive pay program in America. We had a huge expansion of charter schools. We started testing kids in the 4th and the 8th grade and testing where it matters, where we could intervene and get them back on track. And in a 10-year period of time, we went from 27th in the nation to the second highest high school graduation rates in America. That's conservative governance. That's given people the opportunity to succeed in life and not have to depend on government. We based all of that success that happened in that state on conservative principles. We let people keep more of what they work for. We didn't overtax them or overregulate them. We had the most sweeping tort reform in the nation. And it mattered. If you were a pregnant female from El Paso to Brownsville, that is 1,200 miles. In 2003, you had to leave that county to get prenatal care. But because of the tort reform that was put in place, because of those conservative policies that were put in place, individuals across that region of the state now have access to health care. This has been about access to health care. This is about the Christus Spahn Hospital System in Corpus Christi serving South Texas and a fairly high minority population that saves $100 million a year in defense cost. That's $100 million that can go back to doctors and nurses and technicians and technology and buildings, making people's lives better. That's what conservatism is really all about. And we've got to get back to it. We can do this. It can be done. It can happen all across America. I'm going to tell you, 2016 is the most important election of our lifetime. I know you hear that every time there's an election. This just happens to be the truth this time. It's true because we have had 6.5 years. 6.5 years of expanding the welfare state and a contracting of the freedom state. There are two visions for America. The government-run welfare state, like you might find in the state of Washington or California or New York. And you got the limited government freedom states, like you find in places like Texas or Louisiana or South Carolina or Florida. The centralized state offers more regulations and less freedom. A world where everything costs more from college tuition to the cost of housing to the price of government. Their answer to our current economic mess is more government solutions, more tax dollars placed in the hands of bureaucrats, more distribution schemes, and a shrinking pie for the middle class. I think it was Margaret Thatcher that said, the problem with socialism is that eventually you run out of spending everybody else's money. But it doesn't have to be that way. With the right nominee, we can cut taxes on corporations and individuals. We can unleash growth and create jobs and lift wages. We can create opportunity by drilling for American energy and selling it all around the world. We can restore our reputation abroad by reasserting our moral authority, by standing with our allies like Israel, by standing up to our adversaries like Iran. We can be the America that we know in our hearts we are meant to be, a nation of ideas and innovations, a place where freedom flourishes, that special land that those heroes at Normandy died for. Conservative principles applied consistently will make the better place for all of us, but especially those minority Americans. More African Americans are living in poverty today than they were when President Obama took office. That's because he offers them government programs instead of creating new incentives for people to work. We can improve the lives of Americans' minorities. The formula is simple. Stop these politically correct regulations that keep housing from a single mom. Let the low and middle income Americans keep more of what they make. Challenge all of our kids to excel in school. We did that in Texas. And you know what the result was? An extraordinarily powerful economic place. From 2007 through the end of 2014, 1.5 million jobs were created in that one state, while the rest of the country collectively lost 400,000 jobs. Those are conservative policies. It is a place where life was protected and people flocked there. They came in droves. We added some 6 million people to our populations during that decade. And in case you're asking or you're thinking, it wasn't because the weather's so great in August that they came. They came there because there's still a place where freedom matters, where freedom reigns. For me, the message has always been greater than the man. The conservative movement has always been about principles, not about personalities. Our nominee should embody those principles. He or she must make the case for the cause of conservatism more than the cause of their own celebrity. I still believe in the power of that message, a message that offers hope, redemption, and solace in the midst of storms. When I gave my life to Christ, I said, your ways are greater than my ways. Your will is superior to mine. Today, I submit to you, His will remains a mystery. But some things have come and become very clear to me. That is why today I am suspending my campaign for the presidency of the United States. We have a tremendous field of candidates. Probably the greatest group of men and women. I step aside knowing our party's in good hands as long as we listen to the grassroots, listen to that cause of conservatism. If we do that, then our party will be in good hands. And I want to share with you, I give you this news with no regrets. It has been a privilege for me. It has been an honor to travel this country, to speak with the American people about their hopes and their dreams, to see a sense of optimism being prevalent despite this season of cynical politics. And as I approach the next chapter of my life, I do it with the love of my life at my side, Anita Perry. We have a house in the country. We have two beautiful children, two absolutely adorable, beautiful, smart granddaughters, 4 dogs, and the absolute best sunset you have ever seen from the back porch of that house. Indeed, life is good. I am a blessed man. I remain as convinced as ever. There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be fixed with the right leadership in Washington, D.C. Leadership that champions the conservative cause. Leadership that champions conservative ideas. As great as our greatest Republican presidents were, from Lincoln to Reagan, it is their ideas that remain greatest. Those ideas live on through the spirit, idealism, optimism of this generation of Americans. We must return to great ideas, to our belief that there is power in the individual, in free markets, in free Americans standing watch for liberty wherever they may find it threatened. It's up to us. It's up to you. It's up to me. So let's roll up our sleeves. Let's get to work. And let's make America, America again. God bless you, and thank you all for coming and being here today. God bless you. Phyllis, thank you.
All right, guys, that was a wrap on Rick Perry's speech. I know many of you guys are tuning in to get an update on the I-10 shooter, the I-10 shooter suspect search, rather. I know we covered it extensively this morning. Oops. It looks like we accidentally cut away to Times Square once again. And I am working to give you guys an update. Let me go ahead and show you what we know so far. This is some video that was shot earlier this morning at 107th Avenue and 107th Avenue and Indian School Road. There. Oh God. Whoa, that was really, really loud. I apologize if that hurt your ear. This is video from that Chevron gas station where two individuals were taken into custody. They were both being questioned. As of right now, one of those individuals has been released. The other person is still being questioned. Nicole Garcia, Fox 10's very own Nicole Garcia, was the first reporter at the scene of this location. You can see many police DPS vehicles surrounding this white SUV. Again, we don't have any additional information as of right now. I know our assignment desk is working the phone. There's Nicole. You can see her in this video that was shot earlier. Our assignment editors are working to touch base with both Nicole Garcia and Steve Krafft, who are both in the field working this story. And as soon as we touch base with them, we'll be going live here on News Now. So stay tuned as we get more information. We will bring that to you live here on News Now. In the meantime, those of you also wondering about that chase that we brought you this morning, that police pursuit in Glendale that ended up at the hospital in the parking garage. I'm going to go ahead and pull up some video of that really quickly so that you guys have video of this. Again, this is a replay of that chase from this morning. I know that we weren't able to bring you all of the video. As you know, this chase took place in Glendale. We were looking at that red pickup truck. It all started as a pursuit of a burglary suspect. So this is what we have confirmed. This is what I can tell you right now. This all started as a possible burglary of a home in the 5400 block of West Fetlock Trail between Happy Valley Road and the Central Arizona Canal Project. Now, as Phoenix police responded, one of their sergeants saw the suspect vehicle and attempted to pull him over. Then the suspect failed to yield, and that's when a tactical surveillance with our air unit and ground patrol started. The suspect in this vehicle, a 51-year-old man, went to the ground area of a parking structure at 5555 West Thunderbird Road, and that is where police were able to detain him. According to Phoenix police, it appears this suspect may have been involved in several burglaries. So again, you guys are watching a video that was shot earlier today from Skyfox. We brought you these live images in earlier of this police pursuit, and I just want to replay it for you guys now in case you missed it the first time around.
Hi, how are you doing? We've been here sitting at DPS headquarters for at least 5 hours, I'm thinking. And we did attend an impromptu news conference that they had within the last 45 minutes. And basically what they said is that they're still questioning a young man who was apprehended on the west side, about 107th Avenue in Indian School this morning.
Right.
Uh, uh, he was apparently with an older woman at the time,
Right.
and she may have been his mother, but that's unconfirmed to me personally.
Right.
Anyway, she has been released. He's still being questioned. But what was more noteworthy was what they didn't say. They didn't say that he was a suspect in these shootings. They didn't say that he knew much about them in particular. What they did say was that they were talking to him about these incidents and also a number of other outstanding investigations, leaving open the possibility he could be connected to this. He might know someone who's connected to this, or they might be talking to him about a completely different set of crimes, or he might be not connected to anything at all.
Right.
So we have no knowledge that he's being questioned here at all.
Right.
But this is where the headquarters is, and this is where the people who talk to the media have their offices. So that's why we are here. Interestingly, I asked them about how they're using technology to advance this investigation.
Sure.
We have heard they're using microphones that are shot spotters that can tell where bullets are coming from, that they're using high-tech cameras, that they're using roadside cameras, aerial cameras, ADOT data.
Right.
And while the microphone's on in public, they're saying we will say nothing about any of this. However,
Right.
wire services are reporting that they're using all those technologies, but when they're talking publicly about it, they're saying nothing about any of it.
Huh.
In fact, they're refusing to talk about it.
Interesting.
They told us this was a multi-jurisdictional investigation, that they're working along with the ATF and the FBI. They told us that those warning signs are going to remain on into the foreseeable future until this case is solved.
Mm-hmm.
They say they rely on tips from the public. They also said that the number of incidents they are holding at 11. Now, there have been a lot more than that have been reported.
Right.
But they're very careful about what they can specifically say is linked to the shooter or shooters.
Right.
So other things have come in with people saying that, hearing their car struck by something or other, seeing their windshield hit or whatever. But in terms of actually linking that to somebody with firing a bullet, a pellet, a BB, or something like that, what they said on camera was that number is at 11.
Right, because at this point it seems like there's just this heightened sense of fear, I assume, amongst the public, and people are kind of almost looking to report something, would be my guess, given the amount of warnings that are out there in the last couple of days.
That's right. I have to ask you a technical question. Is the audio okay from my end? Is my voice coming through clear to you?
Yeah, I'm good. No, there have been no viewer complaints, so I think we are good in terms of audio. We are getting viewer questions, though, Steve, so I do have a couple to ask you as well.
Yes, let me hear them.
Oh, well, Tess has asked, and I think someone else mentioned this earlier, how long can DPS hold a suspect without actually arresting him? Because we know this individual has been questioned, and he was, I think, taken into custody hours ago, 4 or 5 hours ago now, right?
Yeah, and it's not unusual for someone to be held, for a period of hours. I can't tell you the exact number of hours, I have to say. That's a good technical question. But as an investigative lead or person of interest, they're entitled to ask away. But if they get into a line of question that could lead to any kind of designation of somebody as a suspect and filing of criminal charges, at that point, obviously, they have to stop. They have to Mirandize the person that they're talking to, and they have to give that person the options to leave, retain the attorney, say nothing that could be self-incriminatory. So that's a whole different deal. But in terms of questioning somebody, you would presume that person is talking freely. I don't think they would be coerced.
Right.
But there's always an interesting line between an investigative lead, a person of interest, and what actually becomes then a suspect, in which you are officially inside the criminal justice system and the ball is rolling towards eventually charging somebody with a crime. That's a whole very different deal.
Another question coming in from Joe Foley out in the UK. Mr. Krafft, what kind of info do you think the police know but won't release to the public? That's a good question, Joe.
Yes, and it requires me to totally guess. I would guess, and let's hope, and I don't know who this person of interest is, maybe they have some photographic evidence, something caught on an ADOT camera.
Right.
Maybe they have some information from an eyewitness that they're not sharing with the public at all right now. That's useful to them. That might, be very helpful in breaking this case. Maybe there is somebody who's called in a tip who knows the person of interest. Whether or not that person is connected to the actual crime, that person of interest.
Right.
There might be shot spotter technology. That's broken cases here in the past where, they've been able to tell these very sensitive listening devices where a shot came from at a certain time.
Right.
And, where physically it might have come from. Maybe there's some aerial surveillance that comes from ADOT cameras. That would be very helpful. So there's lots of technical evidence. I think this is a case that in many ways hinges on technology and what they're able to see, because these are, in addition to being heavily policed, they're heavily surveilled at all times. There's ADOT cameras going all along the freeways.
Right.
We show them routinely for traffic, but they're good for showing lots of other things that we never even think about until there's a crime.
And I think one of the things I saw people talking about in the chat room this morning as well was about the fact that at this point, police would be able to determine what kind of gun the suspect or suspects have used. Do you think they're choosing not to release that information because they fear that copycats might come out and start shooting as well?
They're not going to release any information that is not helpful to get somebody arrested. So the only information they're going to release is going to be something that will help them make an arrest. And also not release information that would be known only to the bad guy or guys or girls. Because who's ever doing this, you want them to remain in the area so they can be apprehended.
Right.
So, but yeah, they can, by looking, and this is another technology question, by looking at the indentations and the holes in the cars. I don't know if they've been able to recover any bullets or BBs or pellets. There's a lot of technical data that attaches to a bullet that helps attach it to a certain gun or type of gun or caliber of gun. And, ways they can measure the velocity of a bullet and the size of the hole in the car might show where it came from, how fast it was going, how far away it was shot from.
Sure.
Whether it was someone who drove up next to a car or was stationed on an overpass or on an embankment. There's so many questions. That's a lot of technical stuff that ballistics people will be looking into as well.
Interesting. Let me see what the viewers are saying at home. Tabitha saying, since the suspects have been detained, have there been any other incidents? Tabitha, no suspects have been detained. Only a person of interest questioned. Want to clarify that, Tabitha?
Yeah, and I don't know if that person of interest is still being questioned. I'm not at that site. I'm not exactly sure where that site is.
Right.
And that person we will not see arrive or depart, and we don't know who it is. We do know that there was an older woman who was detained initially along with that younger man, and she was released. We don't know if that was his mom or what that relationship might have been. But we do know they were talking to one person. It may turn out that person has nothing to do with this, and it's a dead end. On the other hand, it may turn into that person becoming a suspect. So we're at a very early stage right now. So bottom line from the cops and DPS is nothing has changed with respect to this being an ongoing investigation. The signs are going to continue to say I-10 shooter tips needed. They've got that phone number blinking as you're driving down the freeways. They're still telling people to be careful. And it's not any different really from yesterday, except that they're talking to one person about we don't know what.
Right. I think it's because so many people are focusing on this story that I think everyone is just jumping to conclusions, hoping that they have caught a suspect the minute that DPS indicates that they have any advances in the story or in the case.
Right. Yeah, we're all hoping that, right?
Right. A couple more questions. It looks like few people wondering if there have been any other incidents. I know this morning a number of reporters, photographers were being sent out to different locations because of possible incidents, but I believe none of those were confirmed, correct?
Yeah, I'm one of those reporters who was dashing around town.
They sent you up to
Been really-
51 in Northern, right?
Yes, we started at SR 51 and Northern. Nothing there. We had a chopper overhead, didn't see anything either. And then we went to the 101 and Thomas in South Scottsdale. Nothing there either. So those were just in North Phoenix and in Scottsdale, those two reports. So, I don't know what those reports were, but there were no signs of anything having happened, no DPS, no people with shot out windows or busted windows or anything.
Right.
Yesterday I did encounter one of those stories, a woman who had a BB or pellet shot into a window in the back seat, the left side window, and that was by State Route 51 and Shea. 51 and Shea. That's where that happened.
That's not too far
So
from
that one did
51
happen.
in Northern.
That's correct. It's a couple miles maybe.
Right. So right now
it's close.
still just 11 incidents that have been confirmed, right?
That's what they reported to us on camera within the last hour.
Let me go through the chat room one more time. Here's an interesting comment from Justin Tidwell. I don't know any information on this. I'm going to ask you if you've heard anything about this. From what I've read, this guy targets people that are on their cell phones. How many of the victims were on their cell phone at the time of the shooting? Have you heard anything about this?
No,
Okay.
I haven't. Interesting question.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, fortunately, there's been only one injury in all this, and that was a girl who was in the passenger seat, I think, up front, who had a cut to her ear from shattered glass, but no other injuries.
Which is fortunate
So-
considering how many incidents there have been, that no one has had any real severe injuries or anything worse.
Right,
You know?
because these bullets will go through a car.
Right.
Actually, I heard yesterday that the place that a bullet has the hardest time getting through is the window. The tin, or whatever it is, the metal, generously put, on the sides of the car, a bullet can tear right through that. But the windows are a little bit more, hard to get through.
Right. I'm not gonna lie. This morning when I was driving to work, I was afraid that I was gonna be attacked and that suddenly I would be someone that you guys could talk to. It's so terrifying just getting on the freeway. I don't know. I feel like I'm not the only one who's slightly paranoid now when it comes to driving on Interstate 10.
I think that's a bad way to think, because
Sorry.
one of the dangers in a story like this is that it gets so blown out of proportion that everyone has a collective conniption fit, and a couple stupid pieces of behavior by some person out there causes all of us to
Panic.
panic and totally reroute and live our lives in a radically different way. And I just think I don't buy into that at all.
Right.
I really don't. And I think in many ways, I think this is a huge story and we have to cover it. But I'm also not going to buy into the fear factor. I'm not going to spread fear while covering the story.
Right, that's true. I mean, at the end of the day, thousands and thousands of vehicles travel on these freeways on any given hour, and the number of reports compared to the number of vehicles that actually travel are it's a very small number.
Yeah, I want to cover this as a story of a ongoing series of crimes that the police are trying to solve, DPS is trying to solve. They need the public's help to solve them. They're using technology to try to crack the case, and that's how I'm covering it.
Mm-hmm. I want to read a couple more comments on in the chat room. Let's see. Justin saying, you know what, honestly, this isn't stopping me from driving on the freeway. I'm not going to let some guy scare me into taking alternate routes. Jared saying, have they released the name of the suspect in connection to these shootings they're questioning? They have not released the name.
And he's not a suspect.
Right.
Remember that. That's the other thing that I feel like I have to I'm playing goaltender a little bit. I have to kind of block out any attempts to get the story going in the wrong direction.
Right.
All we have is one person who's being questioned, probably sitting down in a room with some deputies or officers, DPS, talking about this situation.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it is.
Right, and I wasn't here yesterday, so I'm not sure how many shootings had been reported yesterday at this same time yesterday. Was it more that the shootings came in during the day and the evening?
We had a couple yesterday. We had a couple yesterday during the day. One was at I-10 and Elliott. I believe that was an armored truck, like the kind that gets deposits out of ATMs and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one was an armored car. And then the one that I went to at State Route 51 and Shea.
Right. So at
Those
this
two.
point, though, today we haven't had any confirmed shootings thus far. Today.
That's correct. That's correct. None that I've heard, or none that DPS disclosed.
Right, and nothing that we've heard on the scanners, anything like that, as of right now.
Nope.
As of right now, I don't want to say the streets are safe, but as far as we can tell, there haven't been any additional incidents today.
Well, this isn't Gotham City, and this guy's not the Joker.
Well, thanks for checking in with us. I don't even know if I'm allowed to go off topic here, but did you see that Rick Perry suspended his campaign?
Yeah, not a surprise. He was broke. One reason you suspend your campaign is because you ain't got no money.
And he can't ask Donald Trump for any.
They say more money, more problems, but in politics, if you don't have money, that's the problem. And also, his campaign never got off the ground. And he never has been able to shake the image of being a guy who just isn't very smart. Maybe that's not fair, but the fact that he couldn't remember the name of the third federal agency he wanted to shut down in one of the debates 4 years ago, he never got past that. I know he got some snappy new glasses, and he looked pretty, pretty sharp, but very GQ. But people's never taken him seriously.
Right.
And this is not his time. All he was able to do was be sort of a useful foil for the people who want to take down Donald Trump. So now we have a bunch of joke candidates who are all taking on Trump. Perry, and he's now out. Jindal is polling at 1% or
Yeah,
less.
Jindal never had a chance, and I'm not just saying that because that's what Donald Trump said, but that's just, I think, common
It's just
sense.
true. It's just true.
Right.
His approval rating in Louisiana is like 32%.
Right.
But, he's had a couple funny attack lines against Trump, and that is now his purpose in this campaign. His purpose in the campaign is to be a designated attack dog. Same with Lindsey Graham.
Right.
There's another guy polling at 1%. He's not going anywhere. But he will be a soundbite generator for the anti-Trump forces. So for the people who are backing Bush and Rubio and Walker and Paul and Kasich, those are the five majors, I think, although I think Paul's going to drop out of that. They need people to fill up some of the oxygen in the news cycle with incendiary comments dismissing and dissing Donald Trump, because it's alarming mainstream Republicans that Donald Trump is doing as well as he is. This is now a fire that needs to be stamped out. That's how they look at it.
Right. I feel like you've already pretty much summed up what your next blog post is going to say just in the last minute and a half.
I had a really good idea for a blog post. I'll share it with you because I'm not going to get a chance to do it.
Aw. I feel like
At
what you
least not
just
till
told
next
me
week.
would have made a great Steve Krafft vlog.
I got an even better one.
Okay, talk to me.
Okay. Calling out Carly, and she's not the only one.
See, what's
But-
the title?
Well, I'm going to call it Calling Out Carly,
Calling out Carly.
but or maybe I'll change it to Working Class Heroes. But if you read some of the hype about Carly Fiorina and other candidates, Rick Santorum does this also, and a lot of them do. It's not just Carly. But ever since Abraham Lincoln, who actually lived in a log cabin and split wood, and he was a blue-collar guy for a very long time.
Right.
Everybody wants to be a working class hero, because that's how to make it in politics. But Carly, the claim about her is that she rose from being a secretary to becoming the CEO of Hewlett-Packard.
Right.
What an incredible rise. It makes it sound like the movie 9 to 5, like she was working with Dolly Parton, and then somehow she just became the CEO of the whole company. But it wasn't like that. Her father was a professor of law at the University of Texas, which is a great law school. Her mother was an abstract painter. Okay, she came from a intellectual background. Intellectual, at least.
Okay.
She went to Stanford. She got an advanced degree from MIT. She was a secretary in the summers between years of school. She was worked for Kelly Services. I went to college and I worked in a factory. between years of college to make money for college. But it doesn't make me a working class hero just because I worked a summer job while I was between years of college. I mean, come on. Um, and this whole business about being a blue collar person. My grandfather was a bricklayer. He was a working class hero. But, I'm a TV reporter. I can't claim to be a working class hero because I carry around a microphone. And, she is a very gifted business leader and smart person, no question. But it's a little bit bogus to try to claim that you're some blue collar person who has pulled him or herself up by their bootstraps. And the only couple of people in this race who can really claim that would be Ben Carson, who really did it, and maybe John Kasich, whose father was delivered the mail for the U.S. Postal Service. He was a postal guy, letter carrier. And if that's a blue-collar thing, I don't know. I guess people can interpret that however they want. But he was not the boss of the Postal Service. But some of these other people claiming that, they come from these impoverished backgrounds don't believe the hype.
Right. It's just about the storytelling of it all.
Right. And most of the people who get into politics are rich kids.
Right.
I mean,
because you need money. You need money to run.
You need money. You need connections. So, Jeb Bush is from one of the most prominent families in the United States, and Donald Trump's father was worth a couple $100 million, of which Donald got $40 million back in 1974. Right. So it's not a knock on them. You can't control who your parents are going to be or who's in your gene pool, but it's funny, in America, we seem to demand this creation story about our political leaders, that they come from nowhere and they ascend to the top by dint of their own grit and intelligence and fortitude, the Horatio Alger myth. But in real life, it doesn't play out very often.
Right, it's the story. You want to believe that story, though. You want to believe it about your politicians, about your celebrities, whoever. I mean, not to quote, I guess I'm going to quote the rapper Drake when I say, started from the bottom, now we here. It's a phrase that I think a lot of people want to identify with.
Right. Or the Jeffersons, moving on up.
Exactly, same concept. It's just like you want to believe that those things are possible.
But Drake doesn't come from poverty.
Yeah, and that was all a front too. People called out Drake so much. I'm like, you came from a well-off background in Canada.
Drake is a fake. Drake comes from Toronto. Come on, man.
And from
He's not even American.
And a decently wealthy neighborhood in Toronto, might I add.
Nice. Yeah, it's quite a beautiful city from what I hear. So, yeah, I mean, how many people really, it's tough. A lot of people in Hollywood who are writers and creative types are able to live that life and make as little money as they do at the beginning because they come from money.
Right.
So every once in a while you'll have a Quentin Tarantino who's just, really super talented. But, I guess it's just a funny thing that you'll hear politicians in particular claiming that they come from humble roots.
Right.
And so much of the time they really don't.
Right. It's a lot easier to be a starving artist when you have some parents that are offering you food on the side somewhere.
Yeah. You got a care package.
Exactly.
On the weekend. Yeah.
Care packages.
There's nothing glamorous in being a starving anything.
Right.
It really isn't.
Right.
So that, to me, in a way, makes the Ben Carson story that much more remarkable.
Right.
Because that guy really did it the hard way. He really did.
Right. And speaking of Carly Fiorina, let's go back to your comment from earlier. Carly is here in town today. We heard from her this morning. I know you weren't at the event because you've been covering this shooting nonstop, but I believe she's also holding an event tonight, or this afternoon at 4:45 or something. And Ted Cruz is also here this weekend, I hear.
And she's another person whose position in this race is interesting to me, because realistically she has no chance to win it. But she is a very useful attack dog against Trump, especially since he has so gracelessly said that she's, as far as I'm concerned, he has said that she's unattractive, which I thought was a very poor choice of words to use, right?
Right.
But anyway, or worse, he said. And also, I think she's a good attack dog against Hillary Clinton if Hillary Clinton becomes a nominee, and potentially maybe a good running mate for somebody so the Republicans have a woman on the ticket.
Right.
But in terms of her political career, it's been a failure to this point. She ran for one race and she got swamped. She ran for Senate in California. It was not close. Mm-hmm. So one wonders what exactly her rationale is for running for president.
Maybe she just always wanted to put her name out there for the VP candidate. I know that's something you've been mentioning quite a bit.
That's what I think. And I think that she was, really good in the first debate, and she's real smart. And, it's a free country and anyone can run for president. More power to her.
Donald Trump,
on the
Kanye
merits
West.
of Donald Trump, Exhibit A.
And maybe
Exhibit
Kanye.
A.
Maybe Kanye.
Wow. It's funny living in this country, you really can't predict it, can you? I've been trying to explain it. I've had occasions to talk to people from other countries about our political system, and they're always like, we don't understand how you guys pick presidents. And I will say, I don't get it either. I really don't.
Hapalea has a question for you, Steve. Bernie or Clinton, who is going on the Democrat side?
Wow. We're just watching Hillary's campaign slowly implode, aren't we? I saw a picture out of Columbus a couple days ago, and she's not drawing big crowds.
Wow.
And she's hard. I know there's some people who love Hillary Clinton. She has a reservoir of goodwill, and a lot of establishment figures in the party like her. But I'll tell you this much. If she drops the first two primaries, statistically she's now even or behind in Iowa and behind in New Hampshire. If the national media jumps on that and says, hey, she's supposed to be the front runner, she's lost Iowa and New Hampshire, and that's just in a few months from now, the wheels could come off of this really quick. At that point, the party's in a tough spot, because I think a lot of party chieftains are going to figure Bernie Sanders can't probably win the presidency in this big country with a lot of people to the right of where he stands ideologically.
Sure.
So who's going to run?
Joe Biden?
Are they going to try to draft Biden? He doesn't seem to want it. He's kind of standing back and waiting to see what happens, as far as I can tell. And they're not going to bring Al Gore back, that's for sure. Who's left? Elizabeth Warren? I don't know. Maybe they'll draft her. But I think the bench on the Democratic side is really thin. And one knock you can probably attach to President Obama is that he doesn't seem to have built any kind of infrastructure to succeed him. He hasn't groomed successors or come up with a list of people who can carry the torch that he's lit.
Well, everyone kind of assumed, though, that it would be Hillary, and this was prior to the whole email scandal, and I think that's what's really put a dent in the Democratic Party. For example, Hapalea is asking, will there be legal ramifications from the email scandal for Clinton? I really think the reason we feel like the Democrats don't really have anyone is because of Hillary Clinton and all the drama behind her email scandal. If the email scandal didn't exist, I feel like all would be well, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a big problem for her. The way she's handled it has been such a miscalculation, and it shows a sort of a deeper, I think, to some people who are disenchanted with her. It seems like she's a character flaw where she does these, paranoid things, and then doesn't own up to them, or says only the truth comes out in dribs and drabs, and that's the worst way to handle any kind of bad news. And she wades into it every time, and that's just been her MO and Bill Clinton's, frankly, for decades. And I think that my sense of it is the falling poll numbers indicate people are just tired of it. So either maybe they'll buy her apology of a couple days ago, maybe they won't.
By the way, did you see...
But it's interesting.
I don't know if you saw the video clip of Hillary Clinton with Ellen doing the whip and nae-nae dance.
That was brutal.
I saw it just recently. I saw it earlier today, and I wish I was watching this. I was like, God, I wish I could play clips from other shows right now, because it's one of those things.
It was cringeworthy.
I couldn't help but just laugh.
There was the beat, and then there was Hillary.
Well, I'm saying,
she wasn't on the beat.
I looked at it though, and I was trying to figure out what she was doing. If she was trying to appeal to the mainstream audience. It's something. What she did is something I could see President Obama doing, but succeeding at. Do you know what I mean?
He'd be good, and Michelle Obama was great.
Yeah, at doing the whip and the nae-nae or whatever, but there was something so awkward.
Doing whatever, going on any talk show of any genre and just kind of being cool. I mean, both of the Obamas just pulled that off.
That's
one of their political gifts. Yeah, it's a great political gift, and that's one of a number of political gifts I think that he's been able to show people over the.
Sure.
That's why he's been president for 8 years, or coming up on 8 years. And Bill Clinton also was good that way, and Ronald Reagan was good that way. And there's lots of presidents who are just good on camera and good at entertaining people, and the camera loves them, and they just
Charismatic.
audiences like them, and they fill up when Obama was running in '08, he came here to Phoenix. He's drawing 20,000 people. I mean, everywhere he went, 20,000, 50,000, 80,000. This is crazy.
80,000?
So, well, when he got the nomination in Denver and he gave that speech, he filled up Invesco Field, it was called at the time. That's 80,000 people.
Wow. Well, that's the thing, though. I personally think that likability plays a huge role in being elected, and how much charisma you have, and that sort of stage presence that Obama does have. And I think, looking at the candidates out there, whether you love him or hate him, Donald Trump is another person that people are just gravitate towards watching.
Yep.
More so.
He's got star quality.
Right, exactly. You have the Donald Trump, and you have Hillary Clinton, and no offense to Hillary, but I see no one that's like, oh my God, Hillary Clinton's on TV, we have to tune in. It's just
right. Yeah. Now, Trump,
is.
unless people suddenly get tired of his act, unless he one too many graceless, insulting things that he says about people, unless people get turned off to that, so far it doesn't matter what he says, he gets away with it. Unless that ends, that's why this debate's so important to me, because he will either be unmasked and he'll be revealed as a charlatan, or he will turn the corner and people will take him seriously as a possible president. One of those two things is going to happen. If it turns into just an insult battle, I think that's going to hurt him. But if he can maintain some of that, watchable quality that he has, and then also show people that, well, geez, maybe he's not that crazy, then I think he's turned a corner and could actually be a serious candidate in this race.
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, no matter what he says that seemingly seems offensive, he keeps growing in terms of his support.
He does, but he's at some point, as we get closer to actual voting dates, people are going to have a little bit more of a reason than just they're generally angry about life in America to vote for him. It's going to have to be like, I like what he says on taxes, or I like him on foreign policy, or I like his trade policy, or I'm with him on immigration. Immigration is about the only thing that he's spoken in some detail about, and that has angered a lot of people, as well as drawn a lot of fans to his side. So, but this is a very important debate, because it can't just be an insult fest, in my opinion, for him. He has to have his personality and his colorful behavior, but he also has to have a little bit of something substantive, I think, this time.
Right. Do you think that the numbers then are sort of inflated, or not an accurate representation of the number of people that actually do support him deep down?
Yes. I think it's easy right now to say who you're going to vote for, but the voters in Iowa vote on a caucus. It's not like a regular election.
Right.
It's a special kind of election where you physically walk to
let's talk about that, because I don't think every person out there knows how it works. You literally are in a room and you walk to different corners based on the candidate you support?
Right. Yes, you do. And then they count the number of people in the corners.
That's so crazy to me.
Yeah. It's old school.
Mm-hmm.
And they do it in churches, and they do it in schools, and they do it in, I don't know, wherever. The one I went to was in a school gymnasium. It's kind of cool. It's like Norman Rockwell painted a painting of democracy in action, and that was at Iowa caucus. And the Democrats and the Republicans do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and both parties are strong in the state. There's plenty of Republicans in Iowa, plenty of Democrats. So,
I want to.
Anyway,
oh, you gotta go.
I gotta.
Oh, you gotta do your job.
Gotta get on the air at 5 and 6 o'clock.
Oh, well, we love having you here. So many of our viewers have so many political questions for you, Steve. We love having our Trump talk with Krafft.
We're concerned now about catching up to whoever this creepy person is who's been taking pot shots at people.
Right. The I-10 shooter, the suspected shooter or shooters. Well, keep us posted if you get any additional information on that. And
okay, we'll do.
Thanks for taking the time out to chat with us, Steve Krafft.
All right, later.
Bye.
See you.
All right, guys. That was Steve. Great conversation with Steve Krafft. Now you're looking at images that were shot earlier at the scene of 107th Ave and Indian School Road. This is where two people were taken into custody. We do know that one of those individuals is still in custody, was still being questioned. No one has been arrested. They are not considered official suspects. Rather, they were just taken into custody and they are being questioned in connection with the Freeway shooting. We have no additional information right now. Of course, we have Steve Krafft on this story, Nicole Garcia on this story as well. We will check in with Nicole Garcia momentarily. Nicole Garcia was the first reporter at the scene at 107th Avenue and Indian School this morning. There you see a shot of Nicole from this morning. So hopefully we'll be able to chat with her and we'll bring you more updates as they become available here on News Now. All right, guys, while we're on this story about the Freeway shooter and the latest in the investigation, what I'm going to do is play this raw interview. We had chatted with an investigator involved in the D.C. sniper case. We did this interview yesterday, and this is the raw interview. I believe it was Jessica Flores who did this interview last night, and I'm going to play this raw interview for you guys now.
If there's copycats or what, but what's your takeaway when you look at the fact that 16 vehicles have some type of either bullet or projectile, some type of evidence of that in the last 2 weeks?
Well, you've clearly got somebody who has got some grudge. To be honest, counter-sniping is about outthinking people. So I would imagine at the moment the police are doing the best to try and get inside this person's thought process. It really doesn't matter how many resources you throw at it. If you haven't got somebody who's smart enough to get inside that person's head and therefore work out what he's trying to achieve, you're not going to get there. So I'm sure they're doing that right now. There is a lot of, from what I've seen, and bearing in mind it's very limited, there's a lot of evidence already that there is already somebody carrying out a copycat, so there could be two. One is clearly a full caliber weapon, the other could possibly be an air rifle. And the longer it goes on, the more chance you've got of other people copying.
And talk about why it's clear that there might be a copycat, because is it the case that a sniper is not going to go from a high-powered rifle to a BB gun?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the clear indications. It's the good thing about sniping is, or the most difficult thing about sniping is, you could do that on purpose. If you want to throw the police off, you could do that on purpose. In this case, I don't think it is. I think somebody has seen it and is basically copying it. It would be very unrealistic for a person who's intent and had access to a full-bore weapon to then switch to an air rifle. So I would suggest there's probably somebody copying already.
And do you, from what you've been able to see, does this person seem like they're trained, or that at least the ones with the bullets, does it seem like they're intentionally hitting a person, or what's the situation?
My initial assessment would be that they're not professionally trained. Professionally trained snipers rarely miss. I don't know the distances they're firing from, but if they're firing an air rifle, it really isn't that far away. So the lead of a moving vehicle, the closer you come in, the lead is less. It's not going to be that difficult. Professionals tend not to miss. That said, if someone's being really clever and they're looking to continue that lack of trust in the police, it would be very easy to be bad at the beginning and then suddenly get very good. So again, it's a case of taking all the evidence you could possibly get and then very quickly trying to work inside somebody's thought process of what they're trying to achieve.
Should the public be scared of driving, or is this...
Again, the police will know more than I do, but whatever this person is trying to achieve, one of those is going to be disruption. If you then force everybody off the road in the DC sniper incident, clearly they did that. That has a huge effect on the economy, and it will start to affect the economy of Phoenix. Certainly we drove down I-10 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon today, 3:30. Road was a lot more empty than it was normally. So I would suggest there's an effect already. Should you be cautious? Absolutely. I mean, if somebody's taking shots at moving vehicles, you can't afford not to be.
Now, you're obviously one of the best snipers probably in the world. So when you think about, if it were you and that was your job to hit a moving vehicle going 60 or 70 miles per hour, you're saying you wouldn't miss. So I guess my question is it possible that this person, like you said, is intentionally missing? And what would that purpose be, though, to intentionally miss?
It's always a possibility that they're intentionally missing. And again, it can be a multitude of reasons, one of which is the person wants to be famous, but doesn't really have a desire to kill people. So he may be missing on purpose just to scare people. It may be that the person is an amateur and therefore doesn't understand the correlation between the moving bullet, the ballistic, and the moving vehicle. Or it could possibly be, at your worst case scenario, somebody who is making the police look stupid at the moment and is going to step his game up later.
And so from an expert, if this person were an expert, they could potentially hit a driver as they're driving. That wouldn't be hard.
Very easily. So it wouldn't be difficult.
Okay, because I think that's the thing that people say, well, even maybe if he's a sniper, maybe because it's going so fast, it'd be hard to hit a driver. But you're saying that for a trained sniper, that would be easy.
That's not a difficult shot, especially when you're looking at the distances involved. You obviously have very large roads over here. And one of the scenarios we teach in our company as a counter-terrorist skill would be that it would be very easy to bring a city to a standstill by doing exactly this, by just hitting random civilians on an interstate at rush hour and then going somewhere else, because it's very difficult to stop a sniper. The police, it's going to take them a while to get a handle on this. It's going to take them a while to do very good detective work and bring it to an end. But it would be a very easy thing to do to bring Phoenix to a standstill.
Any other takeaways that, as you're seeing anything that you think that police, I don't know if they've called you already for your expert opinion, but that you would give to the police for advice at this time?
To be honest, what you need is, and I'm sure they've got it, you need a very experienced sniper sat there, because, as I said, no matter what assets you've got, unless they're coordinated by someone who is breaking into this thought process and work out what he's trying to achieve, it doesn't matter how many men and cars you've got out there, you're not going to do it. So the only thing really is, and again, I'm not sort of throwing them under the bus or saying they're not doing it, because I'm sure they are. It's about getting all the information together. It's good old-fashioned police detective work, but it's got to be done by somebody who understands how a sniper thinks. Even if this person is not a sniper, he's clearly focused or interested in the subject, which means he's probably read a couple of books, maybe watched a couple of films. He's got some sort of expertise because he's hitting a car. So even if he's not in the driver, he is in the car. And as I say, I don't know how far away he's firing from, but if some people are saying that some of the shots have been taken by an air rifle, he's not that far away. The average velocity for 177 is less than 1,300 feet per second, so he's going to be fairly close.
So you said getting in the mind of a sniper. What is the mind of a sniper?
Well, it really depends on what you're looking to achieve. Everyone thinks that a sniper's main weapon is the rifle. It isn't. The sniper's main weapon is my ability to frighten everybody, because you can't hide from me if you don't know where I am. So nobody is safe. One of the very important things that the DC snipers did, as far as planning was concerned, was they hit every race, colour, age group across the entire spectrum. So there was nobody that could say, hey, have a nice day, he's not shooting at me. So that terror was spread across the entire region. If you look at this case now, there appears to be no pattern of who he's shooting at. He's shooting at just random cars, so everybody is at risk. So what a sniper can do is get inside somebody's head and terrorise an entire community, even a city as big as Phoenix, and disrupt almost the entire economics of the city by just making people late for work, making people not go to work, parents keeping their kids off of school because they don't want to take them through that risk. It's a very easy weapon to use. It's a very difficult weapon to stop.
Okay. And we're just going to go a couple of shots. I find this whole...
Haven't gone to ground. They've got a little bit more bold today. So eventually they're going to get overconfident. And depending on how the resources are put out, then it depends how quick the police are going to catch them. But you've got to have someone in that process who can see that, can see the pattern. There's always a pattern, and it is about sitting down and analysing all the information and finding the pattern. There was a pattern in the DC sniper attacks. you've got to have an experienced sniper to sit there and say that.
So even though it looks chaotic and like there isn't a pattern to the public, there's an intention behind it.
There will be a pattern. Now, the person doing it may not know they're setting a pattern, but there will be a pattern there. And it's only another sniper that's going to see that. It doesn't matter how good a police detective you are. If you don't know how a sniper thinks, you're not going to find him. You've got to have a sniper sat there saying, how would I do this? Because there's only so many ways you can do anything. And a sniper will know what he's trying to achieve, what he's looking at doing, where he can be. There's even down to this person is planning where he's shooting from. He's not just randomly turning up and taking a shot and driving off because he's going to get caught too quick. So this person is carrying out a reconnaissance. Reconnaissance are obvious if you know what you're looking for. So it's all there to be found. But if you're not looking in the right place and you haven't got the correct mindset, you're not going to see it and you're not going to find them.
And then I'm just going to ask one more question. Closer. So there's probably 2 or 3 or who knows how many people out there because they're using different weapons. So how do you really crack this case if there's different copycats and stuff? I mean, the most dangerous one obviously is the one using the gun.
Mm-hmm. But the copycat will quit either very soon because they'll start worrying about getting caught, or the first chance that it looks like they're going to get caught. The main person who's actually using a full-bore rifle or a full-bore gun, handgun, whatever it is he's using, or her, there's nothing saying it's a guy, is set on a task and is probably going to get caught. It's unlikely they're going to stop before they get caught. That can either be through a mistake or overconfidence or good old-fashioned police work, but they'll get caught because the pattern will eventually, arise. How good the police are at spotting that pattern is going to depend on how long this goes on for. I have no doubts at all they're throwing as many resources at it as they possibly can, but you need somebody in there who knows what they're doing.
Anything else you'd like to add, or that we should be thinking about?
Not really. It's just a case of this person it may take the police a while to catch them, and the only thing I can ask on their behalf is for everybody to support them. It's not an easy thing to do. And there'll be a lot of experts coming out saying, why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? It's going to take time. The thing about counter-sniping is you have to get inside somebody's thought process. And it may be that unless you have suspects, they may have suspects, I don't know that, but unless you have a suspect, you have to find somebody from the entire area of Phoenix that's doing this. And there are going to be little clues and mistakes that this person is going to make that will eventually add together to form a pattern. And then the police will have a better chance of saying, okay, this is the area he is operating in. He operates at this time of the day or that time of the day, every other day, and eventually he's going to set a pattern that they will find and they'll catch him. Or, as in the D.C. sniper incident, it's going to be just pure luck. In that case, the report went out of what car and vehicle they were looking for, and it just so happened that a truck driver looked out of his window in a rest stop and the car was right in front of him. Called the FBI hotline, and obviously the HRT came down and arrested him. But that was just a member of the public. Information is the biggest thing. The police don't have enough eyes. So if the public were going to do anything, then the police need to educate them on what they can, the information that they can release, and just people be vigilant. And if you see something, say something. There's nothing wrong in calling police and saying, listen, I may be wrong, but this guy, I think, might be involved, or this vehicle is acting suspiciously, because the police are going to want to know. And the more people that help them, the better it's going to be, without risking lives, because this person is clearly dangerous.
Do you think they have a profile already?
It's possible. I've heard talk that they've got the gang crime are involved, or the gang unit are involved, as well as the FBI and various other people at the SWAT team. It may well be that they have somebody in mind. And bear in mind, it could be something as simple as someone who's just upset at the police, someone who's upset at, ADOT. Some of these people pick up guns for the strangest reasons. But if I was going to lay a bet right now, I would say this isn't a professional. Or it's a very good professional who's leading people the wrong way. And that's your worst case scenario. But you'll know that because people will start getting hit, and they'll start getting hit on a regular basis. At the moment, the number of shots that have been taken, that have been admitted to, there may be a lot more, I don't know, but the number of shots that have been taken so far with no hits, it's not a good success rate. And success rate and failure rate is one of the factors that will come into building that profile. If it's a professional, it's unlikely they're going to miss.
Wow. Okay. So we don't know if.
Alright guys, that is a wrap on that raw interview that Jessica did yesterday with the investigator who was one of the witnesses in the D.C. sniper trial. You guys remember that story. So it was interesting to hear his take. He obviously feels that the shooter or shooters involved in this freeway shooting spree is a amateur, according to him. So that was really interesting to hear from. And I know a lot of you guys there watching at home may be wondering, what is going on? What is the latest? Have they caught a guy? Well, unfortunately, the answer is no. We do not have an official suspect in custody. They have one person that is being questioned. However, that person is not being considered a suspect. Police have not indicated that he is a suspect. And that's all we really know so far. As you guys saw this morning, Nicole Garcia was at the scene. Let me just go ahead and pull up that scene video once again so you guys can see video from that scene. 107th Avenue and Indian School, where two individuals were apprehended. One of those individuals still being questioned by police. You can see many DPS vehicles on scene at that Chevron gas station. This is all we know right now. Not a lot of information, but in case you missed it the first time I played it, I'm going to go ahead and play it for you guys again. This is a DPS officer, Jason Seeger, giving Nicole Garcia an update this morning.
This particular investigation that you have.
What happened here in the parking lot as well as the gas station is just another example of an operation that our Criminal Investigations Division, our detectives, our troopers, our SWAT, what you saw was a part of that grand operation. Whether it was the culmination of an investigation or it was in the middle of that investigation, that I can't tell you. But what I can tell you is what you saw was a fine example of how DPS is apprehending people, taking care of investigations and making sure that our undercover operatives are not being exposed.
And we saw a large presence of SWAT team members. We saw a U.S. Marshal's deputy, gang task force people. Does that say anything about the propensity of violence or what this person or people, what they were wanted for originally?
What I can tell you, when you have a large amount of agencies working together, not only do we share information, do we work well with each other, but with that we share resources. And so whether or not this was an operation that involved a high amount of violence or whatnot, what I can tell you is that because we work together, it's just unknown whether or not the suspect or suspects that they were looking at inside this investigation were a threat.
Okay, and you can't tell us whether they'd been following this car for a while or how they ended up at this location?
Unfortunately, I cannot tell you any of that information right now. Okay,
obviously, you know, with all that's going on with the freeway shooting investigation, every single DPS investigation is of high priority, obviously, for the department and for us here in the media. What's the message out there? Obviously, you guys are working overtime and stepping up patrols to try and find the people behind these shootings. What can you tell the public about what's going on right now with the investigation?
Well, I can tell you that DPS, as well as the other agencies in the surrounding area, we take this, as well as any other crime, very serious. We take our responsibility of public safety very serious. DPS takes its motto of courteous vigilance very serious. And so when you see a larger presence out there, it's because we understand that the citizens of Arizona may be more apprehensive to drive a freeway or to drive a road. All DPS wants to tell the citizens of Arizona is that we are doing our best to take your tips, your information, to process that and make sure that we're able to find the shooter before he's able to act again.
And we saw that the suspect vehicle being driven off by an undercover DPS officer. Is that?
Again, that would be something that the supervisors of our Criminal Investigations Division, they were going to make that call for whatever reason they made that call. I can't tell you why or even where that vehicle is heading.
Okay. Anything else you can say?
Not at this time.
So what can you tell us about this particular investigation that you have?
What happened here?
All right, guys, so that was just a clip of Nicole's interview with DPS officer Jason Seeger. In case you missed it from this morning, I know a lot of you guys have questions. You want to know about license plates. You want to know about suspect names. Honestly, we don't have a lot of information right now. They are not releasing any information in terms of the name of the individual that has been apprehended and is being questioned. So I can't give you that. We have not gotten any more confirmed shootings as of today. There have been some incidents reported in different parts of the valley, but no confirmed incidents. Only 11 confirmed shootings as of yesterday, up to 16 possible ones. We know that 6 took place yesterday. Not a lot of activity today other than that situation that took place at 107th Ave in Indian School, where they did corner the person of interest, the person they took into custody to question. That's all we really know right now in terms of the freeway shooter search. Of course, as long as we are on this story, we will bring you the updates here on News Now. In the meantime, I figure it's time to shift topics for a little bit. As you know, today is September 11th. The unfortunate terrorist attacks of September 11th, the attack on the Twin Towers, took place 14 years ago today. There were many memorial events that took place this morning in New York City and D.C. We have a handful of them clipped for you guys. We weren't able to air them live for you guys because we were just covering this shooting so extensively this morning. However, we did record some of it. I'm going to go ahead and play this first one for you. This one comes from the Pentagon, the Pentagon's 9/11 memorial service. And I'll be back with you guys in a little bit. And if anything breaks in regards to the search for the freeway shooter, you can be certain I'll be interrupting this coverage and bringing you those live updates.
Those who are joining us in spirit everywhere that this is broadcast around the world, I want to thank you. Thank you for coming together as we remember and honor those who were lost here 14 years ago today. I'm honored to be here today with our 25th Secretary of Defense, the Honorable Dr. Ashton Carter, sir, and our 10th Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Paul Selva. They'll both be providing us remarks shortly. Everyone here today is very special. You're part of the Pentagon family. We have a common focus, a collective mission, and as a family, we execute that. That said, it's a family that's part of an even larger community. Local first responder organizations were among the first on the scene 14 years ago, and some are here again today. So with us representing our outside partners, our Deputy Chief Charles Penn from the Arlington County Police Department, Chief Joseph Reshetar from the Arlington County Fire Department, Mr. Jack Brown from the Arlington County Office of Emergency Management, and Chief Russell Miller from Joint Base Meyer-Henderson Hall Fire Department. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. Right over there. Corridor 4 was part of the first wedge of the Pentagon that was renovated. DoD personnel had just recently moved back into those offices 14 years ago. And in fact, not everyone had even been relocated back in there. And then on this day in 2001, 125 of our coworkers and 59 passengers and crew of American Airlines Flight 77 perished. They ranged in ages from 3 to 71. They were colleagues, friends, relatives, and they were fellow citizens. And today we reflect on that tragic September morning, but we also embrace the journey of healing and progress that has taken us to where we are today. While it was a painful time, it also showed our strength. The actions of those here in the Pentagon and of our brave community partners, they were heroic. The unbelievable resilience of our people was reflected in those who stayed through the night and those who reported for duty the next day, even though the building was still burning. And the outpouring of compassion, support, and service across this nation was felt by all. As we rebuilt this uniquely shaped headquarters building that we all work in, we appropriately also included inside the building an America's Heroes Memorial. It's at the point where the plane hit our building. And just outside the walls there, of course, we partnered with the Pentagon Memorial Fund, and we built our Pentagon Memorial. It's a very special place for all of us where one can remember, reflect, and renew the spirit. So while it's been 14 years since that tragic attack on our nation, we still feel the absence of those we lost and the dedication and devotion of our friends and fellow citizens who lost their lives that day and those who've sacrificed since. They will never be forgotten. But that's one of the reasons we gathered today. to remember the sacrifices made by our colleagues and friends, to reflect on all who responded in so many ways that day and in the days that followed, and, I submit, to renew our commitment to serve. So thank you once again for gathering today, to come together and to hear our distinguished speakers. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Paul Selva.
Good afternoon. Before I begin, I want to compliment all of you that are standing in the shade for the wisdom of having done so. Secretary Carter, Mr. Rhodes, friends, distinguished guests, good afternoon. It's actually difficult for me to believe that 14 years have passed since that fated airliner plunged into the western walls of this very building. Yet the image of smoke streaming from this building is still vivid in all of our memories. But the building stands for all of us as a symbol of strength and community. All of us remember where we were on that morning. It joins us all. In an instant, 184 lives were lost, 55 military and 70 Pentagon civilians, and another 106 passengers. They were our colleagues, they were our friends, they were our family. One local firefighter who responded to the Pentagon that day said in a note not too long ago, "I was extremely proud of our military that day. Those heroes went back into the flames and disaster and remained to help those who could not help themselves." He went on to say the bravery and fortitude of that day still resonates within that hallowed building. And so as I reflected on that, I thought it would be interesting to understand how this building came to be. And as many of you might expect, it was a relatively short notice tasker on a Thursday afternoon that landed on the desk of a Brigadier General Summerall, 1941. And he said to his staff, "Ladies and gentlemen, by Monday morning, I need a design for a building that will house 40,000 workers and be the home to our War Department." And they delivered the plans for this building. 74 years ago on this very day, ground was broken for the Pentagon. And 16 months later, people were moving in and going to work. That's important because that team built this symbol. You continue to deliver on that spirit every single day. I'm going to depart from my prepared comments and tell you a short story that happened to me this morning. When I got up to deliver my comments at the Pentagon Memorial, I was captivated by a young man about 6 rows back who couldn't stop himself from crying. So I hugged him after the ceremony and I said, "Young man, you're the person I was talking about. You're the resilience and hope of this nation. You are the reason I do what I do." His mother thanked me for my service, and the young man took my hand and said to me, "General, if you do nothing else, please leave this world better than you found it, because I will do everything I can to do the same." His spirit is reflected in every single one of you. Every one of you who have dedicated your lives to defending freedom and liberty anywhere it's challenged. Every one of you who have made the choice to serve, military or civilian. Thank you for that service and dedication. Thank you for being part of this community. It's my privilege at this point to introduce to you our Secretary of Defense, the Honorable Dr. Ashton Carter. Sir.
General Selva, Mr. Rhodes, distinguished guests, visitors from outside the department, friends and neighbors, ladies and gentlemen. On few other occasions do we see more clearly that the Pentagon is more than a bureaucracy or a building or even a proud and noble institution. In this courtyard today, you see also that we're a community, and not just any. We are connected by a unique and solemn mission to defend our nation, to carry forward its values, and sometimes, as we remember today, to sacrifice for them. We're gathered here to honor 184 mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, service members and civilians who, like thousands in New York and Pennsylvania, perished in a horrific and cowardly attack. But today we remember far more than how these men and women were taken from us. Most of all, we remember and honor what they gave to us through their example of service and leadership, through their friendship, and through their dedication to this nation and to its defense. On my office desk sits a piece of Indiana limestone, collected in the rubble in the days after 9/11, which reminds me every day of their memory. It's a small piece of the Pentagon passed down to me by each of my predecessors who has served as Secretary of Defense since September 11th, 2001. And beneath it reads this simple inscription: to honor the 184 people whose lives were lost, their families, and all those who sacrificed that we may live in freedom, we will never forget. The weight of those words, of this obligation, is part of what motivates me every day. It's part of what gives meaning to all of our work together. For some in this courtyard today, this sense of obligation to always honor and remember is what inspired you to serve, as it did thousands of young Americans in the years after 9/11. More than a decade later, this generation of patriots has grown older and wiser. In fact, I can see it in the crowd today. You're fast becoming the leaders of this department and of our military, of the finest fighting force the world has ever known. For you and for all of us today, we are here not only to remember those who died on 9/11, but also the friends, family members, and colleagues who went to war in the years that followed, all of them. Today and all days, we remember those who returned from those wars with scars, seen and unseen, as well as the heroes who did not return, who gave their last full measure of devotion to this nation. We often speak of the greatest generation, the Americans who vanquished fascism in Europe and defeated Imperial Japan during the middle of the last century. And we should always remember what they did for us and for the world they left us. But never for a moment should we forget our own greatest generation, the men and women who, in our own time, served, sacrificed, and voluntarily answered our country's call in Kandahar and Korangal, in Fallujah and Taliban, and in so many forbidding corners of the world. They served with honor, courage, excellence. Each of our lives, the life of this nation, is richer because of all their example. Earlier this morning, General Selva and I had an opportunity to speak with family members who lost loved ones at the Pentagon on September 11th, as he related. You know, try as we must, we can never know what those people have endured. But after 14 years, we do know this: those who attempt to inspire fear or terror will find no satisfaction and no success in threatening the United States. Instead, we come back. We come back from tragedy stronger and more united. No matter where they have harmed our service members or civilians, whether at the World Trade Center or the Pentagon, whether at our embassies in Beirut or Kenya or in Tanzania, whether in Khobar Towers or the USS Cole, the terrorists who sought to harm our people will find no safe haven. No matter how long it takes, terrorists will not escape the long arm and the hard fist of American justice. We will find you. And whether your name is Abu Sayyaf, for Junaid Hussain or Nasser al-Wahishi or Osama bin Laden, the result will be the same. For those who lost their lives to terrorism at the Pentagon, and for all of those who have given their lives to our country in the days since, there's no memorial grand enough, no tribute great enough to honor those who sacrificed so much for so many. We cannot remember those heroes or their families on just one day. As the inscription reads on the piece of the Pentagon that sits on my desk, that we may live in freedom, we will never forget. These words are not simply written in stone, they're inscribed in our hearts and carved in our will. They describe a solemn obligation which binds us together. So within this community, we will never forget. We will always remember, and we will continue to honor the memory of those we have lost with the work we accomplish together.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the playing of America the Beautiful by the United States Air Force Band. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the departure of the official party. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. This concludes today's observance.
All right, guys, that was just one of many 9/11 anniversary events that took place this morning. I was having an interesting conversation with many of you in the chat room over the course of the last few minutes, many of you all sharing your memories of 9/11, where you were, what your experiences were on that day, September 11, 2001. So before I go to our next video clip, I want to go ahead and show you these live images coming in from New York. This is a live look at New York City right now. Momentarily, right when the sun sets, we'll be seeing these two lights beam up in the place where the Twin Towers once stood. It's something that happens annually in Manhattan, that in honor of the Twin Towers that fell 14 years ago. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the chat room window, read what you guys are saying in the chat room. Very emotional, some of you guys sharing certain memories of 9/11. D just rocking, saying, I was just getting out of the shower and a friend called me to turn on the TV. Halala saying, we were going to take the family to a ball game for my daughter's birthday. The game was then canceled. Les Chow Mein saying, I was in college and I was getting a haircut in a great clip while it was happening. Jared saying, I worked for the district as well. It was half days then and I watched it through the classrooms I worked in. Halala saying, wow, we all remembered where we were when we heard. Absolutely, Halala. It's something that you don't really forget. Jared saying, I was in 8th grade, 3rd period history class when my teacher's wife called and he turned on the TV right before the second plane hit. Halala saying, I took my kids to school trying to make the day as normal for them as possible. Beverly Hooper chiming in saying, I was at work with an afternoon flight out to Chicago. It was a business trip and I watched it all on the boss's TV in her office. Steven saying, I was a little kid back then. I was 5 years old and I was in preschool and they put us into a classroom and I saw in my eyes the images of the World Trade Center in smoke and on fire. Tess saying, I was pulling into the parking lot at work when the radio announced that the first plane had hit the World Trade Center. It was a long, heartbreaking day. Alice Olvera chiming in saying, I was going to preschool when this took place. My mom wouldn't let me get on that school bus. Obviously, everyone has their own memories of where they were on 9/11. Frankie saying, it was too early to have been in school. By 6 a.m. Arizona time, both towers had been hit, so I just stayed home. Deborah saying that she was in her office. Her husband called. Deborah says her whole company went to the Red Cross for the rest of the day, helping to divert flights and let people know where to go. I'm going to go scroll down and read a couple more of your comments before we continue with our 9/11 coverage. Joe Foley saying, I was at my sister's just watching TV, then the program ended before it should have and switched over to video of the towers. Halala also chiming in saying, I remember hearing about the Oklahoma City bombing. I sat in front of the TV for 2 days straight, including at night. I was in shock, I think. AZFGJ saying, the morning news was on the day of 9/11. My 10-year-old came in saying that a plane had crashed. Then my 8-year-old twins came in saying another plane had crashed. 14 years later, both my oldest and youngest are in the military. Wow. Brian Smith saying, 14 years ago today, I was trapped in Las Vegas for 8 days, couldn't fly out when we were supposed to. 4-day vacation turned into 8 days. Lots of people with various memories of 9/11. Hapalea saying, 14 years ago today, I was watching the Today Show. The show broke talking about the towers being hit by a plane. I remember being shocked, but I will never forget Matt Lauer saying, did that building just, oops, I think that Hapalea's comment just was cut off. D Just Rocking has a terrible memory from 14 years ago. I remember seeing people jumping from the towers. That scene still haunts me. Rachel saying, D, I saw a documentary my freshman year with that footage. I still see it. Deborah saying, yes, D, they stopped showing that footage. That was awful. Happily is saying, yes, D, that was another unfortunate thing many people witnessed that day. Kapolei saying if I watch anything about this, like the footage from years ago, it takes me back to those very moments. I cannot watch them. Jared saying, I remember watching people jump and creating a big thud when they hit the concrete below. They took their own lives in their own hands. I can't believe that our government couldn't prevent it. Jared, it is a very sad thing to think back on the fact that people were jumping to their death rather than lose their lives inside that building. Really, really just a sad, sad story. Bargold Images saying, I was at a conference at the Marriott Wardman Park Hotel in D.C. From my room, I could see the smoke from the Pentagon. It was crazy. So, so sad. I do have some archive footage from 9/11 back in the day. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up right now. Some of that old 9/11 footage. Kind of amazing to look at right now. Just some of that 9/11 coverage. Just awful to really think back at this really tragic incident that took place exactly 14 years ago today. And I was telling some of you in the chat room, I remember where I was in my bedroom back home in Fresno. I would watch the morning news, the morning shows, as I would get ready for school. And I remember just watching the news and seeing the destruction. And I was just shocked. And I at the time, I really couldn't comprehend what was going on. It was just sort of like, whoa, what had just happened? And the next thing you know, I go to school and it's the only thing people are talking about pretty much every single class. You're not really focusing on the subject you're supposed to learn in class that day because we're all just glued to the TV watching news coverage, trying to figure out what exactly is going on. Again, looking at these images, just here we are 14 years later, it's very emotional to look back and think that this is real video, this is real life, this really happened. We are not looking at scenes from a movie or outtakes from a movie. These are live images of what took place that day, September 11, 2001. Just absolutely awful to think about.
The city is closed. You cannot leave the city.
Again, guys, you're just looking at archive footage from September 11, 2001. Just an awful day, absolutely devastating. 9/11, two planes hitting the Twin Towers in New York City exactly 14 years ago. Another plane hitting the Pentagon. Thousands of lives lost on September 11th. Here we are now 14 years later looking back on that tragic day, those tragic events that unfolded. Really just an awful, awful scene. Some of this archive footage, very hard to look at, but this is reality. This really took place. We are not looking at video from a movie or anything. These are real life images, real news clips, video of an event that truly happened 14 years ago. Thousands of lives lost on September 11, 2001. Alright guys, now that I've played some of this archive footage for you from exactly 14 years ago, I'm going to play some video for you from this morning. Some more video of 9/11 memorials. This one, I believe, in New York City. Let's go ahead and...
Words cannot express the sadness that we feel in our hearts of your loss. Our lives will never be the same because you're not there to be a part of it. My prayer today that each and every one of us will come together and love one another so that this horrific day and the lives that were lost this day will not be in vain. Love thy neighbor as thyself and be blessed.
And my father, Norberto Hernandez, we love you and we miss you.
Paul Ortiz Jr.
Sonia Ortiz.
Masaru Oze.
Patrick J. O'Shea.
Robert William O'Shea.
Elsie Carolina Osario Oliva.
James R. Ostrowski.
Timothy Franklin O'Sullivan.
Jason Douglas Oswald.
Michael John Otten.
Isidro D. Ottenwalder.
Michael Shung U.
Todd Joseph Oida.
Jesus Ovales.
Peter J. Owens Jr.
Adianis Oiola.
Angel M. Pabon Jr.
Israel Pabon Jr.
Roland Pacheco.
Michael Benjamin Packer.
Diana B. Padro.
Deepa Pakala.
Jeffrey Matthew Palazzo.
Thomas Palazzo.
Richard A. Palazzolo.
Oreo Joseph Palmer.
Frank Anthony Palumbo.
Alan N. Palumbo.
Christopher Matthew Panatier.
Dominique Lisa Pandolfo.
Jonas Martin Panic.
Paul J. Pisani.
John M. Paulillo.
Edward Joseph Papa.
Salvatore T. Papasso.
James Nicholas Papa George.
Marie Papalardo.
Vinod Kumar Padakat.
Vijaya Shankar Paramsati.
Nitin Rimash Parakar.
And my father, Arkady Zaltzman, my hero, my light, my shining armor.
And my son, Anthony Tempesta, who we miss every day. I'm sorry. my son Anthony Tempesta, and we love him very dearly. Thank you.
Hardai Parpu,
James Wendell Parham,
Deborah Marie Paris,
George Paris,
Gi Young Park,
Philip Lacey Parker,
Michael Elaine Parks,
Robert E. Parks Jr.,
Hajmuk C. Pamar,
Robert Paro,
Diane Marie Parsons,
Lebardo Lopez Pascual,
Michael J. Pascuma Jr.,
Gerald Hughes Paskins,
Horace Robert Pastananti,
Suzanne H. Passaro,
Avnish Ramanbai Patel,
Dipti Patel,
Manshi Patel,
Stephen Bennett Patterson,
James Matthew Patrick,
Manuel D. Patricino,
Bernard E. Patterson,
Clifford L. Patterson Jr.,
Sierra Marie Patty,
Robert E. Pattison,
James Robert Paul,
Patrice Paz,
Victor Hugo Paz,
Stacy Lynn Peak,
Richard Allen Perlman,
Darrell V. Pearsall Jr.,
Thomas Nicholas Pecorelli,
Thomas Pedicini,
Todd Douglas Polino,
Mike Adrian Peltier,
Anthony G. Peluso,
Angel R. Penna,
Robert Penninger,
Richard Al Penny,
and my cousin firefighter Carl Francis Cesaro. We love you, we miss you, and you'll be very proud of how your family has developed in the years without you.
and my grandmother, Arcelia Castillo. Everything I work hard for and strive to be is for you, Mama Gilla, and all that I love.
Salvatore F. Pepe,
Carl Allen B. Peralta,
Robert David Peraza,
John A. Perconte Jr.,
Alejo Perez,
Angel Perez Jr.,
Angela Susan Perez,
Anthony Perez,
Ivan Antonio Perez,
Nancy E. Perez,
Barry Berenson Perkins,
Joseph John Peroncino,
Edward J. Perata,
Imelda H. Perry,
Glenn C. Perry Sr.,
John William Perry,
Franklin Allen Pershep,
Danny Pesci,
Michael John Pescherine,
Davin N. Peterson,
Donald Arthur Peterson,
Jean Hoadley Peterson,
William Russell Peterson,
Mark James Petruccelli,
Philip Scott Petty,
Glenn Karen Pettit,
Port Authority Police Officer Dominic A. Pizzula,
Colleen Elizabeth Pizzuti,
Kevin J. Pfeiffer,
Tuan Pham,
Kenneth John Phelan Sr.,
Snea Ann Phillip,
Eugenia McCann Piantieri,
Ludwig John Picaro,
Matthew Picerno,
Joseph Pick,
Christopher J. Pickford,
Dennis J. Pierce,
Bernard Pietronico,
Nicholas P. Pietrunti,
and my father, Port Authority Police Officer John Dennis Levi, who is forever our hero. We love and miss every day.
And my husband, Brian Joseph Murphy. Brian, it is 14 years later, and we still think about you every day. You live on in your beautiful daughters, Jessica and Layla, who both just started their first year in college a couple of weeks ago. They share your tremendous passion for life, your curiosity about everything, and your sense of adventure. You would be very proud of the young women they have become. We all love you very much and will never forget, and thank you, New York, for remembering.
Theodoros Pigus,
Susan Elizabeth Pinto,
Joseph Piscadlo,
Christopher Todd Pittman,
Joshua Michael Piver,
Robert R. Plazier III,
Sandra F. Plazier,
Joseph Plumetallo,
John M. Posher,
William Howard Holman,
Lawrence Michael Polich,
Thomas H. Polhamus,
Steve Policino,
Susan M. Polio,
Darren H. Pontel,
Joshua Ayusa Poptine,
Giovanna Porras,
Anthony Portillo,
James Edward Patorti,
Daphne Poletzos,
Richard Poulos,
Stephen Emmanuel Poulos,
Brandon Jerome Powell,
Scott Allen Powell,
Sean Edward Powell,
Antonio Dorsey Pratt,
Gregory M. Preziosi,
Wanda Evelise Prince,
Vincent A. Princiota,
Kevin M. Pryor,
Everett Martin Proctor III,
Carrie Beth Projan,
David Lee Pruitt,
Richard A. Prunty,
John Foster Puckett,
Robert David Puglis,
Edward F. Pullis,
Patricia Ann Puma,
Jack D. Punches,
Hemant Kumar Putar,
and my mother, Sol E. Colon. We miss you every day. We miss everything about you. I hope that you can see from up above what a wonderful job that our dad has done raising the two of us. We love and miss you so much.
and our son Todd Douglas Polino, and our daughter-in-law sister Kayleen Elizabeth Pasuti.
Joseph J. Picior Jr.,
Edward R. Pycon,
Christopher Quackenbush,
Lars Peter Qualben,
Lincoln Quape,
Beth Ann Quigley,
Patrick J. Quigley IV,
Michael T. Quilty,
James Francis Quinn,
Ricardo J. Quinn,
Carol Millicent Rabelais,
Christopher Peter Anthony Roccanello,
Leonard J. Regaglia,
Eugene J. Raggio,
Laura Marie Raganese Snick,
Michael Paul Ragusa,
Peter Frank Ramondi,
Harry A. Rains,
Lisa J. Rains,
Etisham Raja,
Valsa Raju,
Edward J. Rawl,
Lucas Rambusik,
Maria Ramirez,
Harry Ramos,
Vishnu Ramashrup,
Deborah A. Ramsauer,
Lorenzo E. Ramsey,
Alfred Todd Rank,
Adam David Rand,
Jonathan C. Randall,
Shreyas S. Ragnatha,
Ann T. Ransom,
Faina Rappaport,
Rhonda Sue Rasmussen,
Robert A. Rasmussen,
Aminia Rasul,
R. Mark Rasweiler,
Martha D. Ratchford,
David Allen James Rathke,
and my brother Aaron Iskandarian Jr. On behalf of the whole family, including my father who passed away last year, who found it difficult to remember this day. However, he never wanted to forget his namesake son. Thank you.
and my father, Edward W. Straub. We are your legacy. We think about you every day, and we look forward to continuing to live our life in your tradition.
William Ralph Roon,
Gerard F. Rousey,
Alicia Razuva,
Gregory Rita,
Sarah Ann Redheffer,
Michelle Marie Reed,
Judith Ann Reese,
Donald J. Regan,
Robert M. Regan,
Thomas Michael Regan,
Kristen Michael Otto Regan Hard,
Howard Reich,
Greg Reedon,
James Brian Riley,
Kevin O'Reilly,
Timothy E. Riley,
Joseph Rena Jr.,
Thomas Barnes Reinig,
Frank Bennett Reisman,
Joshua Scott Rice,
Karen Redden,
John Armand Rayo,
Richard C. Riscato,
John Thomas Resta,
Syria Sanpo Reese,
Martha M. Resky,
David E. Renton,
Todd H. Rubin,
Luis Cardio Rivera Me,
Eduvigas Reyes Jr.,
Bruce Albert Rennie,
John Frederick Rhodes,
Francis Salviato Ricardelli,
Rudolph N. Riccio,
Anne Marie Ricarbone,
David Harlow Rice,
Ellen Mary Rice,
Kenneth Frederick Rice III,
Cecilia E. Richards,
Vernon Allen Richard,
and my brother Harry Ginn, the unsung hero of my life. God bless the United States of America.
and my father, Joseph John Hassan III. Although I was only 3 months old and never really met you, Mom always tells me how I'm exactly like you, and that makes me very proud to be your son. I will always follow in your footsteps. I know you're up there watching over me. We all love and miss you like crazy. God bless you, and God bless America.
Claude Daniel Richards,
Gregory David Richards,
Michael Richards,
Venetia Ornicia Richards,
Jimmy Riches,
Alan J. Richmond,
John M. Rigo,
Frederick Charles Rimley III,
Rose Mary Riso,
Moises N. Rivas,
Joseph R. Ravelli Jr.,
Carmen Alicia Rivera,
Isaiah Rivera,
Juan William Rivera,
Linda Evelise Rivera,
David E. Rivers,
Joseph R. Reverso,
Paul V. Riza,
John Frank Rizzo,
Stephen Louis Roach,
Joseph Roberto,
Leo Arthur Roberts,
Michael E. Roberts,
Michael Edward Roberts,
Donald Walter Robertson Jr.,
Jeffrey Robinson,
Michelle Lee Jean Robotham,
Donald Arthur Robson,
Antonio A. Rocha,
Raymond James Rocha,
Laura Rockefeller,
John Michael Rodak,
Antonio Jose Rodriguez,
Anthony Rodriguez,
Carmen Milagros Rodriguez,
Gregory E. Rodriguez,
Marsha A. Rodriguez,
Myra Valdez Rodriguez,
Richard Rodriguez,
David Bartolo Rodriguez Vargas,
and to our loving brother, son, nephew, cousin, and friend, firefighter Keith Roy Marcellus Maynard. Thank you for being a hero to our family and to the people of the small island of Montserrat. We love you and miss you every day. Thank you for looking out for your twin brother, Kevin, who's also a firefighter in Houston, Texas. And thank you to our armed services, my partner here who has served for 13 years. And thank you to the firefighters, the police officers, and to all our armed services. God bless you all.
and to my uncle, Louis Anthony Williams. We love you and we miss you. You are the reason that I wear this uniform and stand here today. God bless.
Matthew Rogan,
Jean Desterhan Roger,
Carly Rogers,
Scott William Roner,
Keith Michael Roma,
Joseph M. Ragmanolo,
Ephraim Romero Sr.,
Alvin Remoro,
James A. Romita,
Sean Paul Rooney,
Eric Thomas Ropato,
Aida Rosario,
Angela Rosario,
Mark H. Rosen,
Brooke David Rosenbaum,
Linda Rosenbaum,
Cheryl Lynn Rosenbaum,
Lloyd Daniel Rosenberg,
Mark Lewis Rosenberg,
Andrew Ira Rosenboom,
Joshua M. Rosenblum,
Joshua Allen Rosenthal,
Richard David Rosenthal,
Philip Martin Rosenzweig,
Daniel Rossetti,
Richard Barry Ross,
Norman S. Rossenow,
Nicholas P. Rossamando,
Michael Craig Rothberg,
Donna Marie Rothenberg,
Mark David Rothenberg,
James Michael Rue,
Nicholas Charles Alexander Rowe,
Edward V. Rowenhorst,
Judy Rowlett,
Timothy Allen Roy Sr.,
Paul G. Ruback,
Ronald J. Rubin,
Joanne Rubino,
David M. Ruddle,
and my father, Leonard J. Snyder, Jr. Daddy, I love you. I feel you with me and guiding me each and every day. You're forever in my heart, and I'm beyond proud to be a part of your legacy.
And my Aunt Margaret. Unfortunately, I never had the chance to meet her, but my middle name is Margaret, just part of the legacy of love and compassion that has lived on through me and my brothers.
Bart Joseph Ruggieri,
Susan A. Ruggiero,
Adam Keith Ruhalter,
Gilbert Ruiz,
Robert E. Russell,
Stephen P. Russell,
Stephen Harris Russin,
Michael Thomas Russo Sr.,
Wayne Allen Russo,
William R.
All right, guys, now I've transitioned to this live image of New York City. As you can see on the right-hand side of your screen, there are two beams of light beaming up from the ground to the sky. That is supposed to represent the Twin Towers. That's where the Twin Towers once stood. Those lights beaming up in honor of the 14th anniversary of 9/11. I'm going to continue to bring you those live images in the large portion of your screen. In the upper left-hand corner, however, that will be video playing from the memorial that took place earlier today in New York City.
Jude Elias Safi,
Brock Joel Safronov,
Edward Saya,
John Patrick Salomon,
Majori C. Salomon,
Hernando Rafael Salas.
Christopher A. Santora.
All right, guys, it looks like we have lost that feed of those lights coming in from New York City. Again, we are looking now at a 9/11 memorial out in New York City. I'm going to fast forward, see if
Simowitz.
Oh, there we go.
Diane.
Donald D. Simmons.
George W. Simmons.
Arthur Simon.
Kenneth Allen Simon.
And for my beautiful and loving sister, Deborah Ann DiMartino. For my family and everyone who has lost a piece of their hearts, stay strong, always remember, embrace each day. And this is a little saying from someone, Vicki Harrison. She wrote, "Grief is like the ocean. It comes in waves, ebbing and flowing. Sometimes the water is calm, and sometimes it is overwhelming. All we need to do is learn to swim."
And my father, Daniel Francis McGinley. On behalf of Mom, Terrence, Maddie, Ann, Patrick, and myself, we would like to thank all of our aunts, uncles, cousins, and wonderful friends for all the love and support over the years. Dad, you live on through all your 5 kids. We hope to make you proud. Thanks for everything and keep looking out. Cheers and God bless.
Michael J. Simon.
Paul Joseph Simon.
Marianne LaCory Simone.
Barry Simowitz.
Jane Louise Simpkin.
Jeff Lyle Simpson.
Cheryl D. Sincock.
Kamladai Kami Singh.
Roshan Ramesh Singh.
Thomas E. Sinton III.
Peter A. Syracuse.
Muriel F. Siskopoulos.
Joseph Michael Sisolak.
John P. Scala.
Francis Joseph Skidmore, Jr.
Toyena Corliss Skinner.
Paul Albert Skrizipek.
Christopher Paul Slattery.
Vincent Robert Slavin.
Robert F. Sliwak.
Paul Kenneth Sloan.
Firefighter Stanley S. Smagala, Jr.
Wendy L. Small.
Greg H. Smallwood.
Catherine T. Smith.
Daniel Lawrence Smith.
Gary F. Smith.
George Eric Smith.
Heather Lee Smith.
James Gregory Smith.
Jeffrey R. Smith.
Joyce Patricia Smith.
Carl T. Smith Sr.
Firefighter Kevin Joseph Smith.
Leon Smith Jr.
Police Officer Maura Ann Smith.
Monica Rodriguez Smith.
Rosemary A. Smith.
Bonnie Shahadeh Smithwick.
Rochelle Monique Snell.
Christine Ann Snyder.
Diane Bullis Snyder.
Leonard J. Snyder Jr.
Astrid Elizabeth Sohan.
Sushil S. Solanki.
Ruben Solaris.
Naomi Leah Solomon.
Daniel W. Song.
Marie Ray Sopper.
Michael Charles Soresi.
Fabian Sato.
Timothy Patrick Sulos.
Gregory Thomas Spagnoletti.
Donald F. Spampinato Jr.
Thomas Sparacchio.
John Anthony Spataro.
Robert W. Spear Jr.
Robert Spiceman.
Maynard S. Spence Jr.
George Edward Spencer III.
My brother, Richard Avery Arano. Miss you every day. Going to run the New York City Marathon for you this year and to benefit this fine memorial. We love you.
And my brother,
Lieutenant Philip Scott Petty, New York City Fire Department, Ladder 12. We love you and miss you every day, Phil. And for you and all the innocent people who were senselessly killed on this site, you will forever be in our prayers and you will never be forgotten.
Robert Andrew Spencer.
Mary Rubano Spadano.
Frank Spinelli.
William E. Spitz.
Joseph Patrick Spohr Jr.
Klaus Johannes Sparkon.
Saranya Sri Noan.
Fitzroy St. Rose.
Michael F. Stabile.
Lawrence T. Stack.
Timothy M. Stackpole.
Richard James Stadelberger.
Eric Adam Stallman.
Gregory Stike.
Alexandru Liviu Stan.
Karina Stan.
Mary Domenica Stanley.
Anthony Starita.
Firefighter Jeffrey Stark.
Derek James Stakavicius.
Patricia J. Statz.
Craig William Staub.
William V. Steckman.
Eric Thomas Steen.
William R. Steiner.
Alan Robin Steinman.
Edna L. Stevens.
Andrew Sturgiopoulos.
Andrew J. Stern.
Norma Lang Stwerley.
Martha Jane Stevens.
Michael James Stewart.
Richard H. Stewart Jr.
Sanford M. Stoller.
Douglas Joel Stone.
Lonnie J. Stone.
Jimmy Neville Story.
Timothy Stout.
Thomas Strada.
James J. Strain, Jr.
Edward W. Stroud.
George J. Stroud, Jr.
Edward Thomas Strauss.
Stephen R. Strauss.
Larry L. Strickland.
Stephen S. Strober.
Walwyn Wellington Stewart, Jr.
Benjamin Suarez.
David Scott Suarez.
Ramon Suarez.
Dino Xavier Suarez Ramirez.
Yoichi Sumiyama Sugiyama.
William Christopher Sugra.
Daniel Thomas Slor.
David Mark Sullins.
Christopher P. Sullivan.
Patrick Sullivan.
Thomas G. Sullivan.
Hilario Serrano Sumaya Jr.
James Joseph Swazo.
And my brother, Robert Cromwell Miller Jr. We love and miss you, Bobby. This year you are blessed with the birth of your second beautiful grandson, Samuel. And to those special families in Charleston, you set an amazing standard on how to deal with tragedy. Please know that you are in our hearts and in our prayers.
My brother, Robert R. Hussa. Bob, your family and my family miss you terribly. I never told you this, that you were the wind beneath my wings, and you were my hero. I love you, I miss you, and I'll never ever forget you.
Colleen M. Supinski.
Robert Sutcliffe.
Celine Sutter.
Claudia Suzette Sutton.
John Francis Swain.
Christine M. Swearson.
Brian David Sweeney.
Brian Edward Sweeney.
Madeline Amy Sweeney.
Kenneth J. Swenson.
Thomas F. Swift.
Derek Ogilvy Sword.
Kevin Thomas Sozik.
Gina Steinberg.
Norbert P. Shurkovsky,
Harry Tebek,
Joanne C. Tabik,
Norma C. Tadai,
Michael Tadonio,
Karashiro Takahashi,
Keiji Takahashi,
Phyllis Gail Talbot,
Robert R. Talhami,
John Tagignoni,
Sean Patrick Talon,
Paul Tolte,
Morita Tam,
Rachel Tamaras,
Hector Rogan Tamayo,
Michael Andrew Tamuccio,
Kenishiro Tanaka,
Rondell Sherry Tankard,
Michael Anthony Tanner,
Dennis Gerard Taramina Jr.,
Kenneth Joseph Tarantino,
Alan Tarasewish,
Michael C. Taru,
Ronald Tartaro,
Deborah Tavalarella,
Daryl Anthony Taylor,
Donnie Brooks Taylor,
Hilda E. Taylor,
Kip P. Taylor,
Leonard E. Taylor,
Larissa Salon Taylor,
Michael Morgan Taylor,
Sandra C. Taylor,
Sandra Dawn Teague,
Carl W. Teepee,
Paul A. Tegmeyer,
Yeshvant Morshwar Tembe,
Anthony Tempesta,
Dorothy Pearl Temple,
Stanley L. Temple,
David Gustav Peter Tengelin,
Brian John Terenzi,
Lisa Marie Terry,
Gumate Thackerdine,
Hershad Sham Tate,
Michael Theodoritis,
and my brother, Michael Joseph Zinzi,
and my sister, Catherine McGarry Nowak. Katie, your beautiful smile and spirit remains with us and in us. God bless.
Thomas F. Topkov Jr.,
Leslie Ann Thomas,
Brian Thomas Thompson,
Clyde Ian Thompson,
Glenn Thompson,
Nigel Bruce Thompson,
Perry A. Thompson,
Favana Alexia Thomas,
William A. Thompson,
Eric Raymond Thorpe,
Nicola Angela Thorpe,
Tamara C. Thurman,
Saul Edward Thierry Jr.,
John Patrick Tierney,
Mary Ellen Tiesi,
William Randolph Testy,
Kenneth Tit Jen,
Stephen Edward Ty,
Scott Charles Timmons,
Michael E. Tinley,
Jennifer M. Tino,
Robert Frank Trapaldi,
John James Tippin II,
David Tritado,
Héctor Luis Tirado Jr.,
Michelle Lee Tortolo,
Alicia Nicole Tyros,
John J. Tobin,
Richard J. Todisco,
Otis V. Toblet,
Vladimir Tomasevich,
Stephen Kevin Thompson,
Thomas Tong,
Doris Torres,
Luis Eduardo Torres,
Amy Elizabeth Toyin,
Christopher Michael Traina,
Daniel Patrick Trent,
Abdul Karim Traore,
Glenn J. Travis Sr.,
Walter Phyllis Travers,
Felisa Yvette Taylor Bass,
James Anthony Trentini,
Mary Barbara Trentini,
Lisa L. Trerotola,
Kamamo Baba Terra,
Michael Angel Trinidad,
Francis Joseph Trambino,
Gregory James Trost,
Willie Q. Troy,
William P. Sleepy Jr.,
Janetta Valentinova Soy,
Michael Patrick Tucker,
Lance Richard Tumali,
Ching Ping Tong,
Simon James Turner,
Donald Joseph Tuccio,
Robert T. Torme,
Jennifer Lynn Semis,
J.G. Uglifa,
and my nephew, Wilder Alfredo Gomez. We all miss you, all your family. I remember the happy time we passed. I love you, Chinito. Your mom say love you.
and to my son Paul, who we love and miss so much. But no, Paul, you're in the safest place you could ever be, and that's right here in Mommy's heart. We love you, and we miss you dearly.
Tyler Victor Ugolin,
Michael A. Juliana,
Jonathan J. Uman,
Anil Shari Umarko,
Alan V. Upton,
Diane Marie Urban,
John Damian Boccaccio,
Bradley Hodges Vadas,
William Valcarcel,
Felix Antonio Val,
Ivan Vale,
Benito Valentin,
Santos Valentin Jr.,
Carlton Francis Bavo II,
Pendiala Vam Sukrishna,
Erica H. Van Acker,
Kenneth W. Van Auken,
R. Bruce Van Hine,
Daniel M. Van Laer,
Edward Raymond Vanacore,
John Charles Vandevander,
Frederick T. Vecchio,
Gopalakrishnan Varadan,
David Vargas,
Scott C. Vassell,
Aziel Michiel Vassakar,
Ronald J. Voke,
Archangel Vasquez,
Santos Vasquez,
Peter Vega,
Sankara Sastry Valamore,
Jorge Velasquez,
Lawrence G. Velling,
Anthony Mark Ventura,
David Vera,
Loretta Ann Vero,
Christopher James Villalonga,
Matthew Gilbert Viana,
Robert Anthony Vicario,
Celeste Torres Victoria,
Joanna Vidal,
John T. Vigiano II,
Joseph Vincent Vigiano,
Frank J. Vignolo Jr.,
Joseph Barry Villardo,
Clarabelle Villalobos Hernandez,
Sergio Gabriel Villanueva,
Chantel Vincelli,
Melissa Renee Vincent,
Francine Ann Virgilio,
Lawrence Virgilio,
Joseph Gerard Viziano,
Joshua S. Vitale,
Maria Percoco Bala,
Lynette D. Bosky,
Garo H. Basikaran,
Alfred Anton Vacosa,
Gregory Kalmar Bruno Walter,
Karen J. Wagner,
Mary Alice Wallstrom,
and my sister, Catherine Patricia Salter. Sister also to Tim, Cindy, Linda, and Mary. Mom is doing good, but this is the first year that she could not make the trip to Ground Zero. She's attending a memorial in your honor in our hometown of Wellsville, Ohio. We miss you, we love you, and we will never forget.
and my cousin Gregory Milanowitz. We love you, we miss you, you're forever in our hearts.
Anna Elizabeth Wanio,
Gabriella Silvina Waisman,
Wendy Alice Rosario Wakeford,
Courtney Wainsworth Walcott,
Victor Wald,
Kenneth E. Waldy,
Benjamin James Walker,
Glenn Wall,
Mitchell Scott Wallace,
Peter Guider Wallace,
Robert Francis Wallace,
Roy Michael Wallace,
Jean Marie Wallendorf,
Matthew Blake Wallens,
Meta L. Walla,
John Wallace Jr.,
Barbara P. Walsh,
Jim Walsh,
Jeffrey P. Walls,
Ching Wang,
Weeben Wang,
Michael Warchola,
Stephen Gordon Ward,
Timothy Ray Ward,
James A. Waring,
Brian G. Warner,
Derek Christopher Washington,
Charles Waters,
James Thomas Waters Jr.,
Patrick J. Waters,
Kenneth Thomas Watson,
Michael Henry Way,
Todd Christopher Weaver,
Walter Edward Weaver,
Nathaniel Webb,
Diana Webster,
William Michael Weems,
Joanne Flora Weil,
Michael T. Weinberg,
Stephen Weinberg,
Scott Jeffrey Weingard,
Stephen George Weinstein,
Simon Weiser,
David M. Weiss,
David Thomas Weiss,
Chin Sunpak Wells,
Vincent Michael Wells,
Deborah Jacobs Welsh,
Timothy Matthew Wetley,
Christian Hans Rudolph Wemmers,
Sue Hu Wen,
John Joseph Wenkis,
Ole D. Wengenchuk,
Peter M. West,
Whitfield West Jr.,
Meredith Lynn Whalen,
Eugene Michael Wellen,
Adam S. White,
Edward James White III,
James Patrick White,
and my mother, Muriel Siskopoulos. It's been 14 years, but for all of us here, it could be 100 years. It'll still feel like yesterday, and it's fresh in our hearts. God bless.
and my husband, Michael Massaroli. Thank you for loving me and for continuing to watch over Michael and Angelina, and I miss you more than words can say. Love you.
John Sylvester White,
Kenneth Wilburn White, Jr.,
Leonard Anthony White,
Melissa Y. White,
Malden A. White,
Sandra L. White,
Wayne White,
Leanne Marie Whiteside,
Mark P. Whitford,
Leslie A. Whittington,
Michael T. Holy,
Mary Lenz Wyman,
Jeffrey David Weiner,
William J. Wick,
Allison Marie Wildman,
Glenn E. Wilkinson,
Brian Patrick William,
John Charles Willett,
Ernest M. Wiltshire,
Candace Lee Williams,
Crossley Richard Williams Jr.,
David J. Williams,
David Lucian Williams,
Debbie L. Williams,
Dwayne Williams,
Kevin Michael Williams,
Louis Anthony Williams,
Lewis Calvin Williams III.
John P. Williamson.
Donna Ann Wilson.
William Eben Wilson.
David Harold Winton.
Glenn J. Winnick.
Thomas Francis Wise.
Alan L. Wilsinski.
Frank Paul Wisniewski.
David Westfall.
Sigrid Charlotte Wiswick.
Michael R. Wittenstein.
Christopher W. Wodencheck.
Martin Philip Worthforth.
Catherine Susan Wolf.
Jennifer Yi Wang.
Suchung Steve Wong.
Ying Ping Wang.
Yuk Ping Wong.
Brent James Woodall.
James John Woods.
Marvin Rogers Woods.
Patrick J. Woods.
Richard Heron Woodwell.
David Terrence Woolley.
John Bentley Works.
Martin Michael Wortley.
Rodney James Woodham.
William Wren, retired.
John W. Wright Jr.
Neil Robin Wright.
Sandra Lee Wright.
Jupiter Yambem.
And my sister Abigail Medina, which we have the hope of meeting up with her once again, and we miss you. And Abby, your granddaughter looks just like you.
Local 1 IUEC hero, Chuck Costello, and one of my many guardian angels, my beautiful aunt, Lucille Teresa King.
John D. Yamnicki Sr.
Suresh Yanamadala.
Vicky Yancey.
Shuyin Yang.
Matthew David Yarnell.
Myrna Yaskulka.
Shakila Yasmin.
Olabisi Shady Liani Yi.
Kevin W. Yoakum.
Edward P. York.
Kevin Patrick York.
Raymond R. York.
Suzanne Martha Humans.
Barrington Leroy Young Jr.
Donald MacArthur Young.
Edmund G. Young Jr.
Jacqueline Young.
Lisa L. Young.
Elkin Yuen.
Joseph C. Zaccoli.
Adele Agabi Zakari.
Arkady Zaltzman.
Edwin J. Zambrana Jr.
Robert Allen Zampieri.
Mark Zangrilli.
Christopher R. Zarba Jr.
Ira Zaslow.
Kenneth Albert Zellman.
Abraham J. Zelmanowitz.
Martin Morales Zempowal Tecatl.
Jay Zeng.
Mark Scott Zeppelin.
Ji Yao Justin Zhao.
Yu Guang Zhang.
Evelyn Zeminski.
Michael Joseph Zinzi.
Charles Allen Zion.
Julie Lynn Zipper.
Salvatore J. Zissa.
Prokopios Paul Zois.
Joseph J. Zukala.
Andrew Stephen Zucker.
Igor Zuckelman. And my brother, Peter Ortali, your life, your love, and your spirit inspires us every day. For everyone who is impacted that day, we will never need to be reminded to remember. We will never forget.
And my brother, Michael Tedonio, who continues to be our guiding light. You'd be very happy the way that our 6 children have come out. Danielle, Nicole, Sam, Marco, Michael, Tess. We're very proud of them. I'm sure you would be too. Every day, you help us get through difficult times. We think of you, love you. Never forget.
David Gregory Arche.
Carl John Bedigan.
Douglas McMillan Cherry.
Dorothy J. Charcharo.
Mohammed Salahuddin Chowdhury.
Nestor Andre Cintron III.
Juan Pablo Cisneros.
Scott Thomas Coleman.
Susan P. Conlon.
Vincent Gerard Damadeo.
James V. de Blase Jr.
Christopher Moore Dincuff.
Rena Sam Dinu.
Thomas James Farino.
Nancy C. Dolazicki Farley.
John Gerard Farrell.
Joseph D. Farelli.
Thomas Patrick Farelli.
William M. Feehan.
Rosa Maria Feliciano.
Stephen J. Fiorelli.
Kevin J. Frawley.
Irvin Vincent Gaillard.
Vincent Galucci.
Stephen Ian Goldstein.
Ramon B. Grijalvo.
Philip Hensler.
Brian Hennessy.
Paul Rexford Hughes.
Susan Huey.
Richard John Kelly Jr.
Thomas W. Kelly.
Thomas Patrick Knox.
Deborah A. Kobus.
Gary Edward Kokler.
Dennis Francis Lavelle.
Adam J. Lewis.
Michael William Lomax.
Robert Thomas Linné.
Louise Neal Mariani.
Laura A. Marchese.
Eileen Mary Rice.
Bruce Albert Reynolds.
Thomas F. Thurcroft Jr.
John Talagnani.
Karamo Baba Terra.
David Tirado.
Frederick T. Varici.
John G. Bultzhofer.
Azel Ismael Vasquez.
Garo H. Voskerigian. Gregory Kamal Bruno Wachtler. Victor Wald. Thomas F. Faircoff Jr. And my brother.
And my uncle.
Christopher Quackenbush. Miss you, bro. Okay, let's go.
All right, guys, that is a wrap on our 9/11 anniversary coverage. Again, you were looking at images in the upper left-hand corner that were recorded earlier today when that memorial was taking place in New York City. We heard the names of many of those who lost their lives being read by a number of different people. Now, in the large portion of your screen, those are live images coming in from New York. You see those beams of light shooting up into the sky to represent the area where the Twin Towers once stood. So, again, this is in memory of 9/11, the September 11th attack that took place exactly 14 years ago today. That is going to be a wrap on our News Now coverage. Before I let you guys go, I want to take you live now to San Andreas, California, getting live images of the Butte fire. I'm going to show you these live flames that are coming in right now, and I'll be back with you guys in case I have any additional information. Again, this is San Andreas, California, the Butte fire. Live images coming in right now, courtesy of KXTV at Glendale, California. All right, guys, again, you're looking at live images of the Butte Fire in San Andreas, California. This is Northern California. These are live images that are coming in. Thought I'd share them with you since I'm still here in the newsroom. On this note, I'm going to wrap up things here in the newsroom. I want to thank you guys for staying with us all morning and afternoon with our extensive coverage of the Freeway shooting and the search for the suspect, as well as our coverage of politics, 9/11 memorial services, and more. I appreciate you guys tuning in, interacting in the chat. Thank you guys so much for watching us